So here's 10 times that outfield players were forced to play as goalkeepers. Dani Alves, the 38-year-old veteran of the total of 43 trophies to his name, making him the most decorated player in the world. Yeah, the time that he spent at Barcelona, Juventus, and Paris Saint-Germain all contributed to his success in reaching this milestone. During the course of his career, the Brazilian also played the role of a goalkeeper. When he was playing for PSG, the chance presented itself. In the 90th minute of play against Sochaux, Kevin Trapp was sent off from the game. Thomas Meunier was the player who was supposed to fill the position, but a misunderstanding between the management and the players led to Alves being given the opportunity. It should be noted that it only lasted for a few seconds since the game ended not long after that point in time. Phil Hagelka. The last thing that the Sheffield United manager Neil Warnock wanted to see was his first-choice goalkeeper Paddy Kenny go down with an injury, particularly because he didn't have a replacement goalie waiting on the bench for him. Over the course of more than half an hour, Hagelka and the rest of his defense were successful in holding off the Gunners. The highlight of his performance was a spectacular stop that he made on a shot from Robin van Persie that was rather near to a goal, I'd say. Warnock told BBC Sport after the game that he had no regrets about not naming a substitute goalie on his team sheet. He joked that it was the only chance that the player had of being named man of the match. In a match against Cardiff in 2013, Rangel displayed his goalkeeping skills for Swansea. After trailing behind 1-0 to their fierce local rivals in halftime, the Swans keeper Michael Vorm pulled down Fraser Campbell in a clear scoring position. After the Dutchman was sent off, Swansea had no choice but to send the Spaniard right back, Rangel, into between the posts for a few final minutes of the game because they, again, had no other option. During his brief cameo, Rangel performed admirably, jumping to his right and tipping a free kick taken by Peter Whittingham over the crossbar. Even if his team came out on the losing end of the derby, at least there was no further harm done to the scoreline. Prior to their decisive qualification match against Steaua Bucharest, Ludogorets, the champions of Bulgaria, have never competed in the Champions League. Just after they had tied the game, Ludogorets had their goalkeeper sent off, which meant that extra time had to be played. Cosmin Moti, who normally plays in the middle of the defense, took on the duty of going in goal and was, as a result, cemented his place in Ludogorets mythology. After 120 minutes of play, a shootout was necessary to determine the victor, and it was Moti's performance on the spot that allowed Ludogorets to go to the Champions League for the very first time in their club's history. Rio Ferdinand, the legendary Rio Ferdinand of Manchester United, also donned the gloves. However, he was unable to help his team win. While at the club, Ferdinand and Nemanja Vidic joined a formidable connection, and the two of them went on to win a large number of games and titles together. He was an excellent defender, but his goalkeeping abilities aren't even close to being on par with them. In 2008, Manchester United was competing against Portsmouth in an FA Cup match against Portsmouth. They had already been forced to replace Edwin van der Sar, who had been injured, with Tomas Kuskak, who was then dismissed in the 76th minute. They were forced to accept the penalty, and Ferdinand was tasked with preventing a goal from being scored. In spite of his best efforts, he was unable to prevent the shot from being taken, and United's elimination from the tournament was ultimately determined by that goal. Henry Lansbury. The Champions playoff between West Ham and Blackpool took place, and West Ham emerged victorious, 2-1 over Ian Holloway's team to claim their spot in the Premier League. However, earlier that season, the Hammers goalkeeper Robert Green was dismissed from the league match that was played at Bloomfield Road due to a foul that he committed on Robin Bednar. Henry Lansbury, a former player for the Arsenal youth team, came in to replace Green after the referee showed him a red card with the score 2-1 in favor of West Ham. Despite the fact that the red card had the potential to ruin the day for fans, the match went on. John Terry. John Terry is another well-known player who appeared in a large number of matches. The Chelsea captain had an incredible career at Stamford Bridge and a fruitful run on the Blues spanning 20 years. In 2006, the year in which they had won back-to-back crowns of the Premier League, they were confronted with a pretty exciting matchup. Peter Cech had sustained a head injury in the opening minute of Chelsea's match against Reading, and the club was forced to replace him. After a severe collision, a substitute goalkeeper Carlo Cudicini was also hurt, and Jose Mourinho had used all of his available substitutes at that point. Terry readily took on the responsibility and performed the tasks in an excellent manner. He made a few critical saves, and Chelsea came away with an essential victory as a result. Kyle Walker. The match between City and Atlanta in Champions League group stage was fierce, and that score knotted up in the last couple of minutes. City's goalkeeper at that time, Claudio Bravo, was sent off for a late foul on Josip Ilic, As a result of this, he became the very first substitute goalkeeper in the history of the Champions League to ever be shown a red card. Since Ederson had already been taken out of the game due to one muscle strain, Pep Guardiola opted to play Kyle Walker instead. The first task for the English international was to save a free kick from Alejandro Gomez, which he accomplished well, though it was hardly a spectacular stop. However, that stop was really the only one made by an English goalkeeper in the past 3 years, and he went on to keep a clean sheet. Harry Kane. It's obvious that Harry Kane is often regarded as one of the best strikers in the world. After he scored a hat-trick during Tottenham's match against Asteras Tripolis in the Europa League, the team appeared to be in good shape to advance to the next round and win the competition. Hugo Lloris, the goalkeeper for the Spurs, was eventually shown a red card for a foul that occurred outside of the penalty area, and Harry Kane took over to replace the Frenchman. The subsequent free kick was the first shot he was confronted with, and it was, one that the vast majority of goalkeepers could and should have easily stopped. However, Kane tried to play the ball and ended up letting it go between his legs and go into the back of the net as he did so. Spurs did end up winning 5-1, and the analysts were thrilled by his goal-scoring exploits. But they found his attempts to keep the ball, away from the goal to be very entertaining. Not a good thing to describe that as, but, it is what it is. Robbie Savage. Back in 2010, Derby County and Reading squared off against one another in the matchup for championship. After falling behind 2-1, the team's starting goalkeeper, Stephen Bywater, was pulled out with an injury. And then, shortly before halftime, substitute Saul Dini was given a red card. Robbie Savage, a former midfielder for his team, got the ball after that and the opportunity to salvage something for his team. However, he did allow it in a further 2 goals that resulted in Derby losing 4-1 away to the Royals. Savage's presence offered little assistance to his Rams side, which went on to struggle but eventually just escaped relegation to League One that season. Savage's presence offered little to help his Rams side, which went on to suffer but ultimately just about avoided relegation to League One that season.